The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live and it is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled and feel so privileged to be here with you on this Wednesday morning. We welcome you whichever way you're watching us. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching us on our home channel, which is Autism-Live, or if you're watching us on Facebook Live, or you're watching this recorded, we welcome all of you. There are many different ways for you to participate and to send in questions, and we're going to talk a little bit about, because today it's a little bit wonky, but we'll talk to you about what your choices are. We are going to be with you live for the next 2 hours. Our first hour is Ask Dr. Doreen with the wonderful Dr. Doreen Grant-Bichet, a true expert in the field of autism. In our second hour today, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. My good buddy Nancy Allspot Jackson will be joining me. And in addition to her, our special guests today are amazing. We have licensed marriage and family therapist Vince Redman is going to be here with us, and also a very special guest, Nina Johnson, is going to be with us to talk about how do we teach about sex and everything that goes with sex with our teens and adults who are on the autism spectrum. Yes, we're going to go there. It's going to be very exciting. So that's kind of how the day shapes up. But the whole 2 hours, we really want to hear from you. We want you to participate with us. So Samantha is going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate. I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. Now, I got to tell you something. Our live feature that is on that site, which allows you to ask questions anonymously, it got a little broken. We hear that it's going to be fully repaired and restored and up and running as it used to sometime mid next week. But in the meantime, some of your questions had gotten stuck. You sent them in, they didn't get to us. We have them now. We have retrieved them. I want to say thank you to Jesse for making that happen. And also, Jesse's manning the fort right now. He saw that you guys sent in some more questions this morning. And as Dr. Grant-Bichet talks, if you have something to write in on that site, Jesse's on the job and watching, so that it's going to take longer because he has to ferry that to us. So we're doing a workaround so that we can hear from you, because your voice is so important to us. You just have no idea how exciting it is for us when we have an opportunity to talk to you. Now, our live feature is not the only way that you can write a question. If you want it to be more immediate, please feel free to write in on Facebook, and Samantha also keeps an eye for us on our YouTube channel if you write in a question on that as well. So all those different ways if you're watching live and you want us to hear from you. So without further ado, it is time, my friends, for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Bichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grant-Bichet.
Dr. Grant-Bichet.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Bichet.
Dr. Doreen Grant-Bichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Grant-Bichet. If you are new to the show and you don't know who Dr. Grant-Bichet is, congratulations, it's your lucky day. Because she is a true expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for well over 30 years. I always hate telling on you. But she has worked with individuals as young as very young babies up through senior citizens. And she's made such a tremendous difference in the autism community, both for those kiddos who grow up to be adults, but for the families and for the people who work in this field. She's made a difference. She has trained really a core of people who do therapy all over the world. And she's an amazing inspiration. I tell her all the time she's a visionary. She sees things coming before the rest of us do, and she donates this time every week to be with you guys and answer your questions in real time. Now, we do have to give a disclaimer that there is no expert that could give individual specific advice in this particular forum. It's too hard. There isn't enough information you could give us in this forum for her to, have the experience of being with the individual. It would be a disservice to say otherwise. But having said that, when you guys are getting so much better at writing in and giving specifics, so that we can kind of pick Dr. Granpichet's brain, and it's a beautiful brain. You have a beautiful mind.
Thank you.
And in that way, we all learn together. And it's funny, I always have said that an answer to a question, if you don't know which question to ask, sometimes it's hard. And I learn as much from what you guys write in as anything else, because we all learn from what you guys have to ask. So
yes,
listen to other people's answers and jump on and ask questions. And
the discussions are fun here.
They really are.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's so exciting.
Yeah, and it also helps me a lot, Shannon, because I see what remains important to people.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
I think it's beneficial to the entire autism community when we meet like this and talk like this. Now, I mentioned right before we started this segment that we've had some difficulties with our live feature on our homepage, autism-live.com. So we had some questions that were stuck in the system, which is a bummer. And I really had a meltdown when I realized that your questions were stuck, you guys, because I hate it if you think that we're ignoring you. We're not. But we have your questions now. We're going to get through as many of them as we can today.
Absolutely.
We're not going to get through all of them, and I apologize for that, but we'll slug away at this.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to start. My student with ASD has been having emotional swings lately, especially getting angry and frustrated easily. I've been trying several strategies to help calm him, but music. What kind of music should I start with for him to listen to before he starts his routines? I believe that music will enable him to feel relaxed, and thank you so much for your suggestions.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, of course, a lot of our kids love music. There's two quick things I want to say about this. You just have to, like anyone else, our kids are going to have different tastes. So you need to play different things and see how your student reacts. He could like reggae, he could like classical, I have no idea, and just go with it. But definitely, a lot of our kids enjoy music. It has a very calming effect. I think it also has the effect of helping our kids not hear noises and sounds they don't want to listen to. In other words, another experience that I've seen a lot of is with kids where they listen to music with noise canceling headphones. I'm a really big supporter of the headphones because I've seen so many kids change drastically with these headphones. So you should just try that out. But more importantly, make sure that if music becomes a reinforcer, which it is in most cases, obviously, make sure you're not reinforcing a meltdown. It's always good to use music as a calming tool before the meltdown occurs. But if someone goes into a meltdown, or like a major tantrum or whatever it is, or an aggressive bout or whatever it is, you need to figure out the function of why they are going that path, what's going on, what's causing the frustration. And instead of just trying to calm it, you need to figure out what's causing it so that next time the person actually uses a more appropriate form of communication rather than having the meltdown. And of course, we all occasionally need periods of time where we need to just chill out and listen to music, or calm down, or whatever, close our eyes, meditate, etc. And all of those things are good, but those things should be part of the person's regular daily routine rather than just offered whenever the person already has a meltdown. It's better to offer those things before they have a meltdown so that they have the capacity to go for longer periods of time.
Yeah, it's funny how noise is so personal to people.
Yeah,
like
totally.
what they will like and what they won't like.
So interesting, yeah.
I was in a Bed Bath & Beyond with my son the other day, and we are now at the point where we separate in a store. He says, I'm going to go look at this, and it's so exciting. I always say, you know, the apron string just gets longer and longer. But he called me over. He says, Mom, you got to come look at this. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Okay.
And so he calls me over, and there's this little white cone, and he goes, look at this. They're selling this for like $119, and it makes noise while you sleep. It's supposed to help you sleep. He goes, but listen to this. And he pushes the button and it makes the white noise. He goes, do you believe like somebody would pay to have that make that noise? And I said, you know who loves that? You know who really says she absolutely loves it is Dr. Grandpichet. And he says, really?
Yeah.
She likes to listen to that
White noise.
And I said, yeah, because it makes it so that other noise.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't, that would make me crazy.
I know.
Isn't that funny?
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
But he thought it was so fascinating that you like white noise when you sleep. And he said, no. I said, you know, he said, no, I couldn't sleep with that.
I noticed this a few years ago because I got into the mode of having these air purifiers in every room, and some of them actually make noise. It's not a ton of noise. And at first, when you shut everything down, it's kind of disturbing. It's like, what is that? I forgot to shut something down. But after a while, you just get used. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It blocks out sudden noises,
Yeah.
you know? And so as a result, you do end up sleeping better. It's interesting.
Well, I did mention to him that he sometimes, when he gets sick, he has a vaporizer. And I said, if you think about it, it's very similar to the noise of the vaporizer.
Yeah, that's right.
So he wanted to suggest that you could get a vaporizer, which is cheaper than the sound machine.
So now what I've done, actually, I don't have a sound machine.
Okay.
I used to have one. It broke and I never got another one. But what I use is I still have those things, you know, air purifiers.
Yes.
But now my husband has a fan,
Oh.
which he loves.
Yes.
It's a small fan, but it makes the same noise.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It all works out. Okay, we've got questions coming in from all over the place. This one came in on our live feature, and Jesse retrieved it. So, dear Dr. Doreen, my son is 14 and on the spectrum. His teachers say he needs help with emotional regulation. He gets upset at school and can be aggressive. What can we practice at home to help keep him under control? He has a very short attention span and is easily distracted. What coping skills would be good for him to learn? All he knows is to go to his room when he gets upset, and thank you very much. Thank you for writing it.
Thank you. And that's very similar to the previous question. So, you know, it's really important because, and it's interesting, I could say this about all 14-year-olds, you know, not just 14-year-olds on the spectrum, 14, 15, 16, that age. It's a very tough time, and we start to become adults, I guess, or we think we are. And so we take on a lot, and we tend to want to do various things, or just there's a lot of demand placed on us. And it starts to cause meltdowns and stress. And most of the time, we have not at that age learned yet how to regulate stress and how to kind of either get rid of it, you know, let things go, or we don't even know how much we can handle. It's a bad phase of where we're just like taking stuff on and having continuous meltdowns. So I think there's two important things that you have to do. One is you have to identify what are the things that cause stress for your son. So what are the things that actually lead to those meltdowns, or, you know, just the reactions that he's having. They could be occurring in all environments, in which case you can definitely identify what they are, or they could be occurring just in school, and it's important to identify what they are. So you might need to observe him in school, or have someone else observe and see when those things are about to happen. What are the antecedents, in other words? Once you identify those things, you know that that particular demand or that particular environment is difficult for him, and it's as simple as that. So let's say, you know, with our kids, it could also be funny that we're talking about noise, but our kids are bothered and disturbed by so many things. You know, it could be the lights in the room, it could be the sound, like the gardener outside in the school is cleaning the leaves, or it could be a variety of things. But let's assume that the most common would be like math. Let's say I'm going into a difficult class right now. It's math, or I'm going into an environment where it's very chaotic and I don't know what to do, like PE, whatever it is. That is the difficult stimulus that's about to come. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you teach your child things that can, two things. One is you teach them skills that will make that difficult task easier. In other words, if it's a subject, you give your child tutoring in that subject. If it's a situation, you modify the situation to make it easier. In other words, you make the difficulty level less. You could do that by preparing your child better in those skills, or by making the task less difficult. So that's, in other words, you reduce demand. So that's very important. And the other thing you do is you break up your child's day in a way that there are periods of time that are low difficulty and high reinforcement, with periods of time where there's high demand. Like, look at us, for instance. We wake up, most of us, waking up in itself is usually not something most people like. Most of the time we prefer to sleep. But let's say you wake up and, you get through your first getting ready task, and then you immediately have a reinforcer, which is breakfast. And then you basically will, maybe some of us have a long commute, so you'll drive or travel, whatever. But then basically you'll maybe come across people who you like at work, and that's your next reinforcer. So naturally throughout the course of the day, there are reinforcers. If there weren't, tolerating 8, 9, 10 hours of straight work and then going home and maybe having an abusive spouse or something, most of us burn out from that, and most of us tend to do other less desirable behaviors as an out, because there aren't enough reinforcers. So essentially the rule always is, and whenever your child is freaking out over something, you reduce demands and you increase reinforcers. So you reduce demands by preparing your child better and just reducing the demand, like modeling, prompting, reducing the difficulty, accommodations at school. All those are reducing demand, shortening the day. I mean, there's a million ways you can reduce demands. And you increase reinforcers, so you have more frequent access to things that are reinforcing. You have to figure out what those are and what the school schedule would allow, but perhaps it's something as simple as, before math, which is difficult, he gets to go outside and hang out outside, or go for a walk or something, or or use music or whatever it is, but you have to put it in the schedule. Now assume that your child, I don't know your child, so I don't know the difficulty level he's able to handle and the kind of school, I have no idea. So if I make the assumption that your child has to stick with the routine of the school and go through all of the class, and we can't make too many modifications, then what you can do is you can set up a token economy. Token economies are good because they allow us to give, let's say, a sticker, or grades are a token economy if you really think about it. So some sort of symbol that identifies for your child that they will receive a much larger reinforcement at the end of the day. They can trade those symbols, those tokens, for some sort of reinforcer at the end of the day. And that's also a different way to go. Setting up a token system is a very intricate thing, and you would want to do it with the help of a behavior analyst, or actually read up about how. We have a little module on token economies in IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training. So if you go on there, you can get that module and learn how to set up a token system. But those are the ways to control it.
And I have to say, there's a lot of people who go, oh, I don't like the token economy and I don't like the idea of always setting up a reward for something, because then they're going to feel like they always get something for something. And I used to listen to that sometimes and be a little bit afraid of that. And I have some perspective now about having been, it was 11 years ago that Jem started ABA. So we've had 11 years, and to see him grow. And if you're doing it right, and I think that this is the asterisk, if you're doing it right and you know what the plan is, you do have a way of tapering it off and doing, I don't remember who it is that calls it the slot machine kind of way of doing it, that you're always rewarding it, then you're rewarding if it's certain things, and then you only reward it some of the time. And I have seen how effective it is, and that my son's reinforcers now are things in the environment. This year, really, for the first time, grades really are reinforcing to
There
him.
you go.
They never were before, and
That's
I
amazing.
despaired and thought that they would never be. But it does happen if you do it the right way.
Absolutely. And you have to ask, why are grades reinforcing to him? Why are
Well,
they?
because it's the token economy for what we give.
So when he has good grades, you're happy and you get him something.
Well, he has a thing that he does at our house on Fridays. If his grades are at a certain level, if he's got all A's and B's, he gets to have his friends over, and I make snacks, for days, and they get to do a
That's
live
amazing.
stream, and they get to play video games.
That's awesome.
And to him, he will fight to be able to keep his Friday afternoon. It's a party.
Yeah,
It's
that's
exhausting
fantastic.
for me.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Absolutely, it's very much worth it, and that's, if you really think about it, we are all controlled by those reinforcers in our lives. There isn't a single person who would be functioning. You'd be depressed if you didn't have reinforcers in your life. So, making it more natural, like you have, is just part of ABA. It's generalization. So you reduce the reinforcer. I always say that you start with low demand, high reinforcer, and then you balance it so that you can increase demands and reduce the reinforcers. People who become extremely successful in life are those who can handle a high level of demand for not only a small amount of reinforcer, but for long-term reinforcer.
Yeah, but they don't get it for a while.
Exactly.
Which is,
It's so hard, yeah.
There needs to be a class on how to make that happen.
Well,
I need
it's
to
all
take that class.
Hey, I think it all starts in childhood.
Well, I missed it.
Me
What
too.
am I going to do? Okay, fascinating. And we have a lot of questions about emotional regulation. I think a lot of it is this time of year and everybody's a little cooped up. In California, we don't get that very much because we tend to have sunny days, but we had a good 10 days where it rained.
We did.
And everybody got antsy. Everybody got antsy.
Totally. And always, I find it's always after it's funny, January is an interesting month, and I think it's a combination of coming off the holidays. The holidays are so much fun for everyone, and everybody's, relaxed and having a good time and eating sugar.
Right, but you can't maintain it.
No, of course. I mean, it would, otherwise it wouldn't have any value.
You're right.
Part of the reason we're excited about December coming is because it's once a year.
Yeah, that's
If it was
true.
all the time, we wouldn't care that much. But the other part of it is, honestly, I think most of our kids are like coming off of sugar too. So I think there's a lot of that. And so January, going back to school and going back to a thing is pretty intense for all kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it tends to
just
be the
one
highest
holiday.
meltdown month. Yeah.
There you go. All right, we have to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with more of your questions, so stick with us.
Hey everybody, this is Joe Marisi. We're here live in Fullerton, California at the historic Fox Theater. And we're here tonight for the 4th annual comedy show for autism put on by the Fullerton Cares Foundation. And we're just hanging out outside the theater here, and we're going to go talk to some folks right now and see what brought them out tonight. Please.
My name is Larry Hauser. I'm the founder of the Fullerton Cares Autism Foundation, and the one putting on this whole event. Us, me and my crew.
Larry, doing this for 4 years, what is it that you like best about this event?
What I like best about this event is there's a lot of people in this area that don't normally go to walks or any like stuffy fundraiser events. This is something that those people don't come to, but they want to support. So that's why I really love this particular event is because of that.
A lot of fun. Now, who do I have the pleasure of speaking with here?
I am the Fullerton School District Board President, and I'm taking a lot of the money from tonight. This is a wonderful event, and we can't wait to have the comedy and raise the money for a worthy cause.
the events, try to help raise money for the events, and seems like I said, Larry seems to do all the work and get the crew going, and he just directs us around, and we try to pick up the cash for him.
Awesome, Brian. And Brian, what is it in your 4 years coming to the event? What is it that you like the most about it?
The comedians. I mean, last year we had a full lineup. This year I think the lineup's going to be even better, and I mean, you can't beat it.
The event is the way that our community comes together, that everybody supports Fullerton Cares and supports the families that are part of Fullerton and that show up and create a really great environment for our kids to grow up in.
I'm actually out here to support my good friend Larry Hauser. Happy to be back and happy to support my buddy.
What I like the best is the amount of people that actually come out and support us and support the cause, because they know it's a good cause, it's a local cause, local charity, and so it's just nice to see the community come together for something that's for the community.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's answering your questions in real time. We did have a question that came in that somebody wanted to know if I'd already talked about the online peers program, and I had not. So I had to run to my desk and grab my online peers program, and I'm so glad you reminded me. We have talked a little bit here on the show about the peers program out of UCLA that's done by Dr. Liz Lageson, who's amazing. We've had her on the show. She's an amazing, amazing woman. And you saw that, you identified that and said, we need to be having this at all of the centers. And you had Dr. Lageson come, you flew people from all over the country in, and they did a training. I got to sit in on a few minutes.
I don't know, 60 of our people or something.
It was amazing. I got to sit in on a few minutes of it, and it just totally was luscious. And so that is, if you're at a CARD center, most of the centers have that now. And so many people had said, what about the rest of us? And can you do this if you can't get to a CARD center? Well, CARD Telehealth heard that, and they now have this social skills program that's peers online. And the thing that's so remarkable about peers, I think, is that it is a class that the teenagers take to learn about what social circumstances, and they practice and they role play, and then they have homework that they have to do out in the real world. But while that's happening, I think what's so critical and important is the parents are also taking the class and learning, how do I support that? How do I not make this harder? What do I need to do to make this work? And you can now get that online. So I want to let you know it's a 14-week evidence-based social skills intervention for motivated teens in middle school or high school. Groups meet once a week for 1.5 hours. Parent participation and regular attendance are mandatory. There's a whole bunch of things that the both sides will learn, the teens and the parents. If you want to have more information, and I will talk about this more, but for right now, you want to call Lisa Poggi. Am I saying her last name right? Poggi? Poggi. And so the number is 855-345, and it's CARD for CARD, extension 1089. Or you can write to telehealth at centerforautism.com. And in some cases, your insurance may cover it. So that's a pretty exciting thing. That's parent-assisted social skills group for teens. Online, it is part of the peers program. So love that. So thank you for writing in and asking specifically about that. I want to turn now, Dr. Granpeesheh, to a question that we had that came in. One of the questions that had gotten stuck in the queue, is it common for boys with autism to wet their pants still at the age of 8?
You have a different list than I do.
Yours is probably, you got to turn it over.
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
I'm coming at you with, I know, it's horrifying. And more coming in on the live feature.
Yeah, I feel so bad that there's so many. Okay, so, I don't know if it's common, but it does happen, of course. And are we talking boys with autism? Yeah. So, it's just a matter of, I have many kids who are past the age of 8 and they still have potty training issues. So it's not something to fear. It's definitely something you can fix. And it's just a matter, if it has suddenly started, in other words, if the child was completely trained and then suddenly started wetting their pants, often in those circumstances, here's the psychologist in me, ABA professionals would be frowning on me right now, but often it's something else has happened in the environment. The child is maybe stressed or scared, or some other new thing has changed, and this is one way of communicating fear. Or it could just be that they've seen another child doing this and like they're now starting to model it again because it gets the other child attention and they want that attention. Could be a medical issue that's occurring if it's sudden. Otherwise, if the child has never really gone to complete toilet training or been completely toilet trained, then yes, this is going to linger until you do a complete process of getting the child fully toilet trained.
Okay.
But it's manageable. You just need to go back and do toilet training again.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. A question that came in on the Facebook Live from Connecticut. We got people watching us from all over the world this morning. She says they just started ABA training for my son, 13 going on 14 in 2 months. Obesity. Is there any way I can explain portion control to my son? And then once you do that, you need to explain it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
That's a really tough one because reinforcers, there's 2 types of reinforcers, primaries and secondaries. Primary reinforcers are the ones that are natural in life, food being the first one. In other words, there's not a human being that is not reinforced by taste, food, and or drink. So it's a primary, your body responds to it. Secondary reinforcers are others, like social praise or money. That's a secondary reinforcer because money itself is just a piece of paper or a coin, it doesn't have any value until you purchase something with it. And then you're still purchasing everything is secondary unless food is a primary, there's other primaries as well. So it's very difficult to fight the primaries. So it's really hard to replace that with something else. The only thing I can think of is that you're not going to explain it at this point. There's no way. And this is what I was talking about earlier, Shannon. The main reason most of us have issues with weight control and dieting is because the reinforcer is long-term. You don't get the reinforcer right then and there. In fact, you're depriving yourself of a bunch of reinforcers right now for a future that's a better reinforcing. So it's like, I will have my perfect weight in 6 months, but meanwhile, from now until then, I can't have any of these short-term reinforcers, which is food. So you have to do it very slowly. Like you need to really give your child, a long period of time and not expect rapid weight loss. You need to do slow weight loss. Second, so that they are able to do portion control slowly. So you'll go from the current situation to slightly less, and just keep doing that. And really you need to increase other reinforcers. So for us, for instance, whenever we diet, we will increase other types of things like rest, sleep, music, crafts, arts, whatever you like, whatever the individual likes. They won't compete with food, but they will help delay the need for food. So in other words, let's say, you're just translating it to our own. Like, let's say you're really hungry, you want something right away, go watch your favorite show first, and that basically helps delay it at 30 minutes, so that results in less eating. And then all the general stuff, like try to use low-calorie foods, obviously, that still taste good. But, and that's all, you have to control it until you get to the desired weight. And then teaching maintenance of the desired weight is where you start talking about teaching control, regulate, like how much protein, how much carbs and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's a pretty tough thing to work on with someone who has obesity issues. I would really help them get to a desired weight first, because as they do, of course, they will feel better. And then at that point is when you start really talking about portion control. It's really not something that you can deal with right now. If you need to, then I would do it in a very basic way. In other words, count the number of spoons of certain items. Like you can have 3 spoons of this rice, you can have 4 of this vegetables, that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't really go into like sort of the biochemistry behind the various things. That's just too complicated.
They make a thing now. I don't know if this would work, but they make a thing now, and you can buy it at most
the containers.
The containers that are different colors,
They're
and
awesome.
so your protein goes in a certain color, and your carbohydrate goes in a certain color, and if it can't fit in the cup, you don't get it.
Exactly.
I have not tried that, but I wonder if it makes it basic.
It makes it very basic, and it's really cool. You just have to then classify foods according to those colors.
Yeah.
So these are all carbs, these are all vegetables, and so on, and it works. I mean, it's good. If the individual needs to do it themselves, this is the best way to go, for sure. They're containers, they fit into each other, they're very cool, and it's like a larger one for, you can have X amount of vegetables, which is the larger one, then there's a carbohydrate one and a protein one, and they're good.
Yeah, and it used to be that you had to order them online and they were really expensive. Now you can get them at Walmart.
Or Target, I think you can. Yeah.
And they're not that expensive. I mean, I think they're more expensive than your average
container,
containers, they get you, but it's not that bad. Okay, I want to turn to a question, and I apologize because I think we had not answered your question, and so and this is a good question. So we've got a dad who's written in, and he watched a 2014 show in which you were talking about how parents, they can go online, go to IBT, they can get an RBT, they can get a BCAT. At this point, but he's gotten a little stuck. He says, no one with whom I've spoken at CARD IBT Skills seems to know how to help a parent looking to do like Dr. Doreen described back in 2014, after the parent has taken the IBT's 40 hours RBT BCAT instruction and passed the RBT BCAT exam, but needs a competency assessment supervision from a BCBA. How can a parent seeking an RBT BCAT certification who doesn't want to get a job with an ABA provider and rather just implement a BIP built by Skills get the last mile of support that they need?
That's terrific. It's a great question.
It is a great question.
Yeah, it's fabulous. We hadn't thought about that, because most of the parents who do this with us are our parents, and then we will provide that for them. So what we'll do is, if you write into Shannon, I'll try to arrange one of our BCBAs to just make some arrangements to do that for you, with you, and we'll take it from there. We haven't had too many requests, but we have about 300 BCBAs. I'm sure we can work something out with you.
I actually had a request from a teacher to do this.
Yeah.
That a teacher was like, how can I do this? Do I have to, so that's good to hear, because I have been sort of trying to chase that down.
So what I was thinking about doing, one of our senior supervisors who's very involved with training, Denise Ryan, she trains a lot of our BCATs and RBTs. I haven't yet, but I'm about to ask her to help collaborate with Skills, because I feel like the Skills team needs more clinicians. And so we might set it up through Skills.
Okay, very cool. And the mom about the food had written back and said that she did try to buy the dividers for the food. She tried the containers. So, and it sounds like you didn't say, but the implication, I think, since you're still asking, is that not so much. And I hadn't thought about it. If you haven't learned the classifications of foods, it probably...
Well, it's easy enough, though, because they're color-coded, so you could put a sticker on every item in your kitchen,
true.
It's not
That's
that
true.
hard.
Well, let us know how the advice that Dr. Grandpichet gave, let us know how that worked. Okay, I do want to go, there's so many questions to choose from, and I don't know which one to go to. Is there one that particularly jumps out at you, or I'm going to go with the guardianship of the 3 grandsons?
Please go right ahead. Yeah,
okay.
There was one that disturbed me a little bit, so you go ahead.
Do we want to do that?
I mean, it says, I have a question about restraints being used on my son without my permission.
Yes. Let's do that one.
And that one is just like horrifying, and I don't know if the previous line where it says at school has to do with that question. So
it does.
That's just not, that's illegal. So you need to, immediately call for an IEP and have that process stopped. You could definitely, in this case, get a lawyer. I mean, that should just not be happening. I mean, I'm shocked to hear that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where you are. Actually, you might be outside of the country.
Well, I unfortunately I'm not shocked to hear about it because I keep hearing stories about this. But it is time to get a lawyer, wherever you are. And if you want, we should have said too for the last viewer, if you want to write to me, and we got new information because Bonnie Yates has been doing, the amazing special education attorney has been doing a regular Thursday spot with us answering legal questions.
That's
and
amazing.
It's amazing how many legal questions there are. And Bonnie always, she answers a question, but she always gives us a goodie. She calls it a goodie, and she gives us a website or someplace where we can go and get more information. And she gave us a goodie a couple of weeks ago about a site that you can go to help identify a lawyer who can help you wherever you are. That's across the 50 states. So if you want to write, you can look for that in the legal segments, or you can write to me and I'll make sure that you get hooked up to that because you need a lawyer. That's not okay. It's not allowed, but it does happen. But let's chase that and get after that. In the meantime, a question just came in that I've got to answer because it's a help with two exclamation points. 13-year-old got a notice to appear at juvenile court after he was involved in a fight at school where he was provoked by another student. He has impulse control issues. We were not told by school that the court would be involved. I'm guessing that's a lawyer up as well.
Yeah, you do need a lawyer. You definitely need an assessment to identify what is going on with the 13-year-old. I don't know if he has other diagnoses as well, but it would be very important. Without a diagnosis, you're not going to have much to stand on by just saying he has impulse control issues. Like, if he has a formal diagnosis, then at least that's something you can use, but otherwise, a lot of people have impulse control issues, and it's important to know if any intervention has been done or can be done. So, yeah, you probably need to get a lawyer, and the lawyer will refer you to someone to do an assessment. Or if you can't afford to go that path, first get a psychologist to do an assessment and identify if there is anything underlying the impulse control. That's very important.
And it is really imperative once the court starts being involved that you take advantage of every single resource that you have to stick up for your child, because even if, you can have a lawyer who doesn't understand these issues and let you down. So I think we're going to revisit both of those questions with Bonnie tomorrow as well. But avail yourself of every opportunity, and don't take the attitude of, well, we're just going to see what happens and I'm going to trust the lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't be that way. I've seen disastrous things happen as a result of that. Okay. Back to the question about the grandsons. I have guardianship of three of my grandsons. The oldest is 9. I've had him since birth. Then in 2013, I got his 2 younger brothers. At their time, their ages were 3 years old, and the youngest was 9 months old. Now, ever since 2013, I've been trying to get the youngest referred to someone that can observe him. Tell me, the PCP, I'm wondering if that...
Primary care provider.
Oh, okay, thank you. He tells me that since there was abuse and neglect by their mother, then he is just delayed. But he's 4 years now and has been kicked out of Head Start due to numerous meltdowns and aggressive behaviors. He lines his toys up in perfect line, and even if one toy is out of line, he has a meltdown that lasts anywhere from 2 to 7 hours. He is very aggressive to his siblings. He spins in circles a lot and at times for no reason screams out inappropriate things. So I'm lost, and I don't know how to get his doctor to listen to me and refer him for observation. I have a lot of experience with autism due to my oldest grandson, whom isn't a sibling of the 3 I have, is severely autistic nonverbal. So we're sending you a hug and telling you what an amazing grandmother
God
you
bless
are,
you for
right?
taking care of these children. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. You need an assessment. You definitely need to get an assessment, just a diagnostic opinion. Where are you? Do we know where this
We
family
don't know.
is? You might want to write into Shannon and let us know where you are. I'm happy to arrange an evaluation with one of our people, depending on if you're close to one of our sites, and I'll do it for free. to help you figure out if this child has autism. At the age of 4, you know, the things that you mentioned, like putting things in a line, turning around in a circle, they do sound like some of the red flag symptoms of autism, but I would never want to give you any idea about a diagnosis without seeing the child and spending a lot of time with the child. So I'm really sorry that you're going through this. It's pretty difficult. Please get someone to help right now, because he's 4 and he might have a really good opportunity, whether it's autism or it's just abuse and neglect. Both of those have incredible positive prognosis when you do intensive ABA. The child can completely come out of this situation in a winner. So we can, you know, things can turn around for him. Please don't give up hope. I can only imagine that it must be completely chaotic around you, and I don't know how you're handling it, but all you really need is a referral. And if this doctor doesn't work, then change to another PCP if you can, or if you're in California, get your regional center involved. You did mention Head Start. That could be in numerous other states. You know, right now we are also receiving Medicare and Medi-Cal for a lot of different states, Medicare for in lots of different states. So please, somehow let Shannon know more information. We'll try to figure out how to help you with just diagnosing the child.
Okay. And again, my email is s.penrod, PENROD, @autism-live.com. And it's S as in silly, because I know some of you listen on iTunes and write to me and say, I tried your email and it sounds like I'm saying F. S as in silly. Okay, so many questions. I want to, the person who's going to court over the aggression, she wrote back and said that he has a diagnosis, high functioning.
Yeah.
But so perhaps the person who gave you that diagnosis or somebody who's working with him can avail themselves to be there when you're in court, because it would be to your advantage.
And also, if they can't be there, then make sure that you get a report from them that says impulse control issues are commonly a side effect or a symptom of autism, and that your child is suffering from these, and that it's possible that he did not know the consequences of his own behavior, and that kind of stuff will be very important.
And start dotting your I's and crossing your T's about school. Like if he has an IEP and it wasn't being followed, make sure that you bring that with you to court. Like whatever his behavior intervention plan, if it was not being followed, that you're letting them know that there were extenuating circumstances.
And that you've tried to get things in place, but that things are falling apart because nobody's following what they should be.
Build the case,
I'm so sorry.
protect your kid.
That's such a tough situation.
And if you want to email me and tell me where you are so we can hook you up with that website so that you can get legal help, because you're going to want to avail yourself of that. Okay, a question from Northern Ireland. Hi Shannon, love your channel, we love you, and find it very informative. I live in Northern Ireland, not too far away, just halfway around the world. My son has autism and has a fear of going to sleep. He thinks that he disappears when he sleeps, and he doesn't understand that dreams are not real. No matter the amount of reassurance or social stories seem to help. Would you have any advice or on tips on how I can help him? Many thanks, Paula.
Let's see, that's a first. That's pretty tough. Does it say how old the child is?
It does not.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you could let us know how old he is and what level of functioning, how much his understanding is. I think with kids generally have fears when they're younger and always around sleep, and they're very unrealistic fears. And I don't know that we ever really get to a point of explaining to them that their fears are unrealistic. I don't think that's the solution. I think that what we end up doing most of the time for kids is just comforting them and soothing them and helping them fall asleep. And that over time they realize that sleep is, at the same time, of course, we tell our kids that sleep is what your body needs and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think there's going to be any way right now for you to explain to him what sleep is. That's just too complex an idea. But you definitely can make the environment more conducive to sleep and more comforting, and perhaps also little things that might help. I'll suggest a few things. So for instance, again, depending on how old he is and how appropriate this would be, you want to make sure to give him items that are comforting. Sometimes it's as simple as telling the child, oh, you know, just keep this bracelet on and you're not going to go anywhere, you're going to be fine. And that is going to be much more effective than trying to explain that dream state versus real states and so on. If his functioning level is high, you could contrast dream state to movies, but I just don't know enough about the child. I do suggest, with my kids, whenever they had like anxiety and all this sort of stuff, I would actually use melatonin, which really helps them fall asleep. And then that would just kind of like take the edge off. It's very hard, you know, for all of us. If we have anxiety about something, we're not going to sleep. We're just anxious. Yeah. And there is a brand of melatonin that I really like, which is Tranquil Sleep. A lot of us use that. It's really good stuff. But it's melatonin. Melatonin is something your body produces anyway, and you're fine. I mean, it's not in any way harmful. So that's another thing. Music always helps, soothing music. You know, just your presence will help, of course, those types of things.
Do you ever recommend that kids get checked for sleep apnea?
I do. It's usually something that becomes apparent very early in the year, the first year or two, because it really, and it's very apparent. In other words, kids when they're babies, if they have sleep apnea, will actually really become fearful and cry, and you know it has to do with their breathing. And the way that they find out is that they put a chest monitor on the baby and can tell that the input of air is not regular. That is a very, very serious thing. And if you have any at all, in any way, any idea that it might be something that's waking the child up, like sleep apnea, or seizures also occur during sleep sometimes, then you definitely need to get your physician on that. That's a very different issue, and it's really important. And thanks for bringing that up.
Well, I just wondered. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm not giving you breaks. I'm working you hard, but we're getting a lot done. Hey, Shannon and Dr. Doreen, West Virginia mom here. I had a question about both of my kids. My daughter is 5 and my son 3. They both recently started new self-stimulatory behaviors. Oh, isn't that a party? And I wanted to get your take on them. My daughter has bouts of uncontrollable laughter. It may sound like a good problem to have, but it's not. I can't get any direction to her. She can't dress herself, brush her teeth, etc. I read that overgrowth of yeast in the gut can cause this. Could it be yeast or some type of vocal stereotypy? My son has started screaming as a stim. He is fully verbal, overly social, but stims more than my daughter, whose autism affects her more. It's always a happy scream, and he typically flaps with it. I currently use Skills. Thank you again for gifting it. Is this something I put on a DRO procedure? Thanks for any input. A slightly insane mama. And she said, haha. Good that you're keeping a sense of humor about it, because it sounds like your house is fun right now.
Right? You're pretty amazing, Mom.
Yes.
So let's talk about one at a time. With daughter, it could very well be yeast. I don't know. Yes, I've seen it's yeast die-off that causes that laughing thing. I've seen it with kids, and it's just like being drunk.
Yeah.
So if it came up suddenly, if you saw, you know, it sounds like it just came about and it wasn't something that you experienced before, it could be yeast. The question really, I guess, is, does it happen when she's alone, or does it happen when she's with you or with someone else? Does it happen when no demands have been placed? Because sometimes our kids will do silly types of stuff to escape a demand. Like you ask them to do something and they'll start the giggling because they can avoid doing the thing you ask them to. But if you see it as happening just, you know, on her own, and she's very much out of it, then it could very well be yeast, and you should probably get that checked out. That's really important, of course. So that is one thing. Once you get that checked out, you know, and this is, you can do an organic acid metabolized test, which is a blood test or urine test, or you can do any kind of blood test to check for that. So let's take care of that. Your son is screaming. I don't know if screaming is what I would classify as a stim or a self-stimulatory behavior. I'm not sure. If he's only doing it when he's happy, then it could be just kind of the way that he's expressing his happiness, which would be easy to get rid of, because basically you would stop him from screaming and replace it with, let's say, laughing. Which would be much more appropriate for when he's excited. If he's typically flapping, like I've seen children where they're watching something on TV and they'll jump up and they'll start flapping and like screech a little bit, and that is excitement. It's dysregulation, like the child's not regulating their own behavior. What you do in that case is just prevent it. Like you literally play the thing that would normally provoke that, the video or whatever that would provoke that, and you actually keep the child seated and give them other ways to express their joy and so on, like dancing afterwards or that sort of stuff. So I think that is that. DRO procedure, differential reinforcement of other behavior for your son. I mean, essentially that's what you're doing. You will be giving him other behavior that is more appropriate. But first, identify the function and make sure that you are clear on what's causing that. When does he do it? Those are mainly the things.
Okay.
Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think also with your daughter, I wouldn't really try to get her through dressing her. This is the key to this. Does it only happen when you try to get her to dress or brush her teeth or so on? Then it's definitely avoidance of task.
Okay. And then let us know what happens. We've got 2.5 minutes, so I'm going to squeeze one more in, but you have very little time. My child has had ABA for 5 years, and he is 8 now. I feel like he has a lot of language in the sense that he knows his objects, actions, prepositions, pronouns, etc. When we ask him questions, for example, where is the car, who's playing outside? In other words, he knows how to correctly respond to simple questions. We're at the point where I'm starting to feel that he doesn't understand language. He knows how to answer these questions, but he doesn't know what they mean. My supervisor says that's interverbal language. How can we teach our child to use language in a more meaningful way? What are the steps to programming? I know this is a question that you can't answer in 2 minutes. He's a smart boy, but I feel like we're getting stuck here.
Yeah. So you are the perfect parent for skills. So and you're very smart to have picked up on that. That is something very, very important because it might be good news because a lot of the kids that memorize things rapidly have a very good visual memory, and that's a good thing for everyone for life. But please go on Skills, the website. It's Skills for Autism, skillsforautism.com, skillsforautism.com. Answer the questions about your child. Your child will fit right in. And it'll take a while to do the assessment. It's a very detailed assessment. And then you will see a lot of these lessons because you'll say he knows these are the things he knows how to do, and how to get them to generalize to real life, real language, and also how to move on from these. These are basic lessons. You need to be going to much more advanced lessons. If your supervisor says that's interverbal, okay, that's just the name of it. That's classification. Interverbal language is basically responding to a stimulus that's not present. Yes, we know that, but how do we get there? So you have to ask your supervisor, okay, but how do I get my child to, for instance, describe things, tell me about events that happened, answer questions about abstract things, infer, whatever. There's a million lessons in there, and you should look at Skills because it'll drive you and you'll drive your supervisor, and you'll say like, okay, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? In fact, show your child's skills profile to the supervisor, and if the supervisor likes it, they can also, or you can, become a member of Skills and have your supervisor use those lessons to teach going forward. But this is level 1 programming or maybe level 2. You have 14 levels to go. You have to get to a much, much higher area, than just answering some basic WH. But I have to say, if your child's at the point of answering WH questions and he's 8, They need to go past this. There's a lot more that he can do. This is WH is an advanced, it's a relatively difficult in contrast to just labels and stuff. There's much more abstract stuff to come, and he needs to move on.
Okay, and you can find the lessons for anybody watching in Skills. There's a whole, if you're looking to get to the intervariables, this is the thing to have.
Lessons,
You can find it at skillsforautism.com. You can call them at 877-975-4559. If you are already a card client, your child has a Skills account, and you can just talk with your supervisor about being able to show you. We did a special edition of Autism Live with Evelyn Kung, where she explained for card parents how they can be utilizing their Skills account. If you are not a card client, you can become a Skills user. It's available to you. There's a monthly subscription price. Your school can become a subscriber. And if you're getting ABA from somebody other than card, that provider can buy a Skills license. So it is available to anyone. And there are lots of ABA providers that are not card that use Skills. It's a great thing. So again, it's skillsforautism.com, 877-975-4559. We're out of time. And I want to say to our viewer who I happen to know and adore, who wrote in and asked a specific question about Turner syndrome, I'm going to save that for next week, and I apologize. It just came in, so I got it too late. But we really wanted to thank Jesse and Samantha. They did a bang-up job of getting your questions in as we have this computer problem that's happening. And thank you.
Always a pleasure.
I do have to tell you that we had a viewer who wrote in and said, I admire your work, and I think we can all agree on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be back with you here next Wednesday, and we're thrilled about that. But thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
You. We're going to take a break now and bring in my good friend Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our special guests today are Vince Redmond, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and Nina Johnson is going to be with us to talk about sex. How do we talk about sex with our teens and our adults who are on the autism spectrum? I can't wait to pull up a chair to that conversation. Stick with us back after these messages.
Welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way.
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course! Here we go!
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm going to take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half, and what I'm going to do with this is going to be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm gonna just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we'll be using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're gonna be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm gonna take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm gonna put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm gonna take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it with the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm gonna do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a piece of felt and we're gonna cover this area so you don't see all the scraggly stuff. So I have my piece of felt right here. I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm just gonna cut out a similar oval shape. And again, don't worry, if it's too big, you can always trim it after we glue it on. I'm gonna glue it inside. All right, now we got pretty much the base of the sock puppet. He's got a moving mouth, but wait, he's got no features. We gotta help him out with that. So what I'm gonna do is I have these pieces of Velcro that I bought that are already sticky on the back, which makes my life a lot easier. And I'm gonna peel this off and place it where I want his eyes. So one there and one there. And then I'm also gonna put them also along his mouth. And then if you want to get fancy, you can put some for his eyebrows as well. So now that I have this, we should be making some features for him. I'm alive! Alive! I had a great time with my buddy Jamie, and I hope you did too. Until next time, bye.
Bye. And don't forget to send us your photos at facebook.com/autismlive.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Well,
we're just talking about what we're talking about.
Because I just changed everything on Nancy with 3 seconds notice.
It's
I said,
okay.
I said, let's not do that. Let's just open the show
Using a
here
football term,
because we have
Super Bowl. Right?
Exactly. Well, I know punt, but other than that,
Punt,
you know,
yeah. Other than I don't know much about football either.
Do you watch the Super Bowl? I don't watch the Super Bowl.
I never watch. I guess everybody watches the halftime show, and actually we're invited to a Super Bowl party, and I'm already worrying about all the food that's going to be there that Wyatt can't eat. You know.
See, when I was single for many more years than I've been married,
Right.
and Super Bowl Sunday was always my sewing day.
Right.
Like I remember I lived in Denver for 3 years when I went to graduate school, and 2 of those years Denver was in the Super Bowl, right?
Okay.
And it was my favorite day because I was free and clear, no one was available to do anything, and I loved to drive through Denver and it looked like a movie set because no one was out.
Sort of like LA on Oscar night.
Right. And no traffic whatsoever, and I would go to the fabric store where the 3 little old ladies were there working,
Right.
and no one else in the world but the 3 of us were out, and I would sew all day. It was so I always sew. It's my thing.
Well, I'm
sew
getting
on.
ready to tidy on
okay.
Sunday. You know.
All right.
I'm doing that KonMari method, the magical Japanese art of tidying.
Gosh, I haven't noticed that. You'll have to teach me because I am.
Oh,
I am not. I for so long I was borderline pack rat hoarder. I think
Right.
we've crossed over into
pack rat.
Yeah, no, I'm all the way there.
All
but
right,
anyway,
so that's this weekend, and yeah,
we have some in the news stories for
We
you,
do.
which we're going to share a little bit later on if we have time. But we have 2 guests. We have Vince Redmond, who's going to be joining us in just a minute. We're going to take a break before that.
Yes, and you did mention Nina Johnson, and she
I
is an expert on
misspoke.
healthy. Well, she's an expert on healthy sexuality for all people, particularly those on the spectrum. But
I said we were going to talk about it, and
we're not
that's not
talking
the
about
truth.
that today. We're going to have her
Yes.
back another time for that.
Okay, good.
But we are going to talk about independence and fostering healthy relationships and development in individuals with ASD and independence. So
Which I'm really excited about because I met her this last summer at the Autism Society of America
Right.
conference. And she's a very stylish person. She's the kind of person who grabs your attention in a crowd and you go, who's that? I want to know her.
Right.
And when I did get to know her and the Minnesota Life College, it's a pretty exciting place. So I'm thrilled that we are going to be talking about that. And another time we'll talk about sex. Sorry, I misspoke. My bad. But first up, Vince Redmond.
Yes.
So we're going to take a break and welcome
we're going to
Vince
talk
to the
about
show.
tantrums and what
How do
the parent?
Yeah, we had a
How we
parent who
recover.
wrote in last week, and it's been haunting me that she was asking about how do you recover after your child has had a meltdown.
Right.
And
It's
we,
hard.
we both have been through that, and
Yeah.
so we're going to ask Vince's advice on it. So stick with us. Back with Vince Redman after these messages.
Nobody ever asks a kid with autism, what is it you'd really like to do? At this school, we ask the kids, what is your goal? What is your dream? Exceptional Minds is a vocational training program for young adults on the autism spectrum who want to have careers in computer animation and visual effects. I think young people with autism are totally underestimated.
When you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. They all have different talents, different skills, and what surprised me is that there really are no limits. That if these guys believe that they can do something, they really can.
It's estimated that 90 to 95% of young adults with autism are unemployed or underemployed.
A lot of young adults still live at home. A lot of them suffer from depression and are very isolated from the rest of the world, and the opportunities for them are very limited.
We want to develop careers for our young adults. Our full-time program runs 3 years, at the end of which we have job placement and job coaching. We have a work readiness program. We also have our own in-house studio so that when our students graduate, they can do on-the-job training and work on real projects.
We outsourced about 30-40 shots to the team here. They did fantastic work that we can put into a movie and be proud of it. It's great. I mean, we want to do it again.
The studio is their first step into the professional world, the first step in their new careers as digital artists.
The whole purpose is to get the students out into the real world.
We all have the same dreams. We want significance, dignity, and purpose with our lives. We have an opportunity to give those 3 words to every single student at this school who will actually be able to go out and participate in the dream.
This is my first full-time, full-paying job. I primarily work in After Effects. I learned After Effects at Exceptional Minds. It seemed like a good place for me to fit in because I was interested in animation.
Right from the first day that Nicky set foot in our company, he was producing work for us. We saw what level of professionalism is being instilled in them from the very beginning.
This was the first opportunity where Nicky could combine something he loved to do with something he was really, really good at that could eventually lead to employment.
When we first met Kevin, he was working at a supermarket bagging groceries, and they said he would never amount to anything else.
I work at Stargate Studios, and I'm a junior compositor. I mainly do like rotoscoping right now, and I'm still learning.
I think that you find great talent in the most amazing places. The students at Exceptional Minds have had a fair amount of training to get them ready for the visual effects environment.
If it wasn't for Exceptional Minds, I might still be at the supermarket, and I might be living at my parents' house.
Everything's changed. Nicky has purpose.
It feels like I'm a member of society now.
He's capable of making it on his own.
Once you get inside and you see what's really happening there, you immediately want to be a part of it.
It's the dream factory, you know, the movie business, and if you can connect people with their dreams, then the magic happens.
At Exceptional Minds, we like to say that we are changing lives one frame at a time.
And we are back with Let's Talk Autism, and we have one of our favorite guests, recurring guest, Vince Redman, who is not only a BCBA, he is well,
he's somebody who's worked in this field for 20 some odd years
Right.
worked with people who are on the autism spectrum,
Yes,
but he
and-
is an LMFT, a licensed
LMFT,
marriage and
right,
family
right.
therapist.
Maybe
But
I
he
misspoke.
started out as a therapist, doing ABA,
Yes.
and then he became, so what's great about that is that he knows both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had the experience, but I certainly have had the experience of going to a therapist who didn't know about autism and didn't know about ABA,
Right.
and talking to them about the difficulties that my husband and I were having just to live,
Right.
and get along with each other and live and keep a roof over their
Yeah.
head. And their advice to us was, well, you need to stop that ABA. It sounds like it's really wreaking havoc on your
Right,
life.
right. Thank you, Vince, for joining us.
Yeah, so Vince knows better than that. So
Well,
long
yeah,
intro, but
and
Vince is the kind of person that you could go to who could actually help you to be able to solve the issues so that you could keep doing ABA.
Right, and it's difficult when you see a therapist that doesn't know ABA. I can attest to that because I've had that experience.
Yeah.
So Vince, Shannon, you want to start because you had a
Yeah,
question from a parent.
We had a question from a parent, Vince, that this is a mom who has been on it and is a single mom, and she herself is a PhD student, and she's really, really motivated, but sometimes her child has meltdowns, and I think that we've all experienced what that's like. And her question was not, how to, prevent the meltdowns, but and not how to calm her child, but how to calm herself down after the meltdown so that she could get sleep or get back to work or get back in the groove, because emotionally we have a reaction, right, Nancy?
Yeah.
And so maybe you can help us, Vince, all of us, to know, how do we get ourselves back in line after it's over?
Right. A lot of it is planning and education. We'll start with that. The first thing is making sure that they're well aware of the function of the behavior, what the behavior comes, because what it's doing is you're now releasing some of the responsibility, maybe some of the guilt or the uncertainty of why the child is having the tantrum, right? If you know why the child's having the tantrum, maybe it's to escape something or maybe it's to receive something, and you're following the behavior intervention plan, you're releasing some of that responsibility because you're following what has been strategically set up to do. So that's the first thing, is being very well versed, very well educated, very well being very comfortable with the behavior intervention plans that are set for those particular behaviors that the child might have. So that would be the first thing I would think of. But then the next thing is having a set of coping strategies, right? We teach this to our kids, is having a set of coping strategies that we rely on, that we can go back to, that we can dig out every time to calm ourselves down. And these have to be things that are determined and selected before we're in these emotional situations. So maybe it's taking a walk, maybe it's breathing techniques, maybe it's I have one dad that has a punching bag in his basement, and he goes and starts working on his punching bag, those types of things. So we have to have it. Everyone's different. Everyone has different things that help them cope. Listening to music, watching a video, we have a set that we have to have quick access to, things that we can rely on, things that we can get to in multiple environments, but also things that we know that are effective. That will immediately reduce their anxiety. As soon as anxiety goes down, our thinking, our capabilities, our ability to problem solve go up, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you, this is something from my experience. If you have a child that has severe OCD, and I had a situation yesterday where Wyatt wants to go home and put his backpack away before he goes anywhere.
Okay.
And he started to escalate. Is that a situation where you see the tantrum coming, okay? Because there's 2 days this week where he can't go home first. And he started to escalate, almost not quite into full-blown tantrum. At that point, do I redirect? What do I do at that point where I see the tantrum about to happen? How can I avoid the tantrum completely by being prepared?
Right. Two things on that one. One would be, since you knew the schedule ahead of time, would be trying to prepare him ahead of time. So maybe giving him a visual schedule, maybe giving him constant reminders throughout the weeks that on Tuesday and Thursday, we have to go to X before we go home, right? Giving him time to actually process this change before it actually is occurring. Because oftentimes what happens when their routines or their expectations change, which we don't think is last minute, it might be the day of and it's like 7 hours later, but to them it's the day of. It's a last minute change. They didn't have enough time to process their expectations. Oftentimes this will reduce their anxiety because they've had days to process it. But now you're in this situation, right? So now, like you said, you're on your way to the new location. He's starting to escalate. I think what you said is perfect. You want to redirect his attention, redirect his thought process to something else. Usually something that's a little bit more preferred, something that's a little bit more pleasurable, something that's going to keep his anxiety down, right? It's a thought stopping mechanism. He stops thinking about the obsession and he starts thinking about something else. It could be songs on the radio. It could be what did he do in school. It could be playing an IC game. It could be playing what kind of car game. You know, anything that would be appropriate, but it's going to shift his attention from the obsessive behavior. If we continue to talk about the obsessive behavior, that might actually increase his anxiety in that situation.
Okay, so stay away from talking about it's okay to change, we're going to the doctor.
You want to do that beforehand.
So do that beforehand, like how many days beforehand would you say? And let's say this is an appointment on a Friday. He's used to every Friday going home, putting his backpack away, having time to indulge in his self-stimulatory behavior that we have in a very timed thing. And I think the anxiety comes from not being able to indulge in that self-stimulatory behavior.
For sure.
And yeah, so if he's not able to go splash in the basin and do his painting for a little bit, he freaks out.
Right, but if he's prepared a week in advance and he every day it's reviewed every day, then he still sees that he gets to go splash in the water and paint in the basement, but it's at a different time, right? It's not that he doesn't get to do it, right? Because when things change, again, when I say last minute, I'm taking it from Wyatt's or the child's perspective. When things are changed, immediately it's thought that they're not going to be able to do those preferred, those highly repetitive routines and situations or in activities. In this situation, he would see he still gets to do it. It's just on a different time schedule.
Okay.
But your question, how long? I would do it. I would start in the beginning of the week and practice and rehearse it all the way through.
Well, and what I love about your answers, Vince, is that both of them focus on the fact that when these things happen in the moment, you know, we're having that reaction. But if we take steps beforehand, we're better prepared.
Right.
And it does take some forethought. And a lot of times we find ourselves there in the moment and we didn't do it, right?
Right.
But it is one of those things that instead of focusing on that in the moment, just finding the time beforehand. It's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
It's a lot of thinking and we're not
a lot of
perfect,
work.
Right? Things change at the last minute, right? Where there is no opportunity to prepare. And when those happen, if he's had other situations where we have prepared for it, right, we can reflect back on those. He can reflect back on those. You know, this is a change, just like it was when we had to go see the doctor and you had to paint later. Remember that? This is going to be like that. So then he has a positive experience of going through, you know, seeing a visual reminder and having his schedule change, and yet he's still got his preferred activities. So even though we're not perfect, if we do it a good majority of the time, he'll have that in his repertoire as something to reflect back on.
So you're saying literally do a visual schedule where it's mom pick up from school, go see Dr. So-and-so, go to see, the thing he's freaked out about is he doesn't have time between the doctor and going to center.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, but actually write all that down and then come home from center and then you can paint.
Yep.
And splash in the basin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because he still gets it.
Yeah.
Right? In the end, he still gets his reward. He still gets his
Right,
reinforcement.
but he's just anxious about it because he doesn't get it at the regular time. And if he starts to escalate, just go to a different activity.
And oftentimes it's because they don't think they're going to get it at all.
Right. Okay.
That the doctor's appointment is replacing the painting and the splashing, right?
Right.
But really, it's not replacing it. It's just pushing it down.
Right. Okay. Okay. Because sometimes I think that when we're in that escalation mode, that's when I have my issues.
Yeah.
The tantrum, after the tantrum happens, I'm relieved.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, the tantrum happened. And usually he won't have a tantrum for a while after one tantrum.
Yeah.
But I get stuck in the escalation mode and dealing it with, as it's escalating, I'm thinking, oh my God, here comes a tantrum or an extinction burst. And a therapist pointed out something very interesting to me about extinction bursts. She said, how long do extinction bursts usually last? Let's talk about that. It was at Piers, in fact, which Wyatt has been doing. And she said, but let's talk about the extinction burst. How many times does an extinction burst usually happen? It usually happens very few times, right, Vince?
Right. It depends on where he is with his behavior change, but yeah, it could last weeks, it could last a day, it could last an hour. I mean, every child's different, but when you see that escalation go up, right? Sometimes he hits the top right away. Sometimes they're going to keep pushing until they realize that the consequences or the routines aren't going to change back to what they want it to be, and then it drops down to them following through with what the new replacement behavior is.
Right.
Well, and one of the things that was told to me, and I don't remember if it was you, Vince, or somebody else, that when we were having behavior, and I look back now and I go, okay, well, that was an extinction burst, this, and you can look at it afterwards and go, oh, that's what that was. But because I would start to feel that thing of, oh no, what's happening? What am I supposed to be doing? And being overwhelmed, was they gave me something else to do, something else to do.
Oh.
Not just distracting them, give me something, because instead of having those thoughts, I was distracted by, and the thing that they told me about extinction bursts, instead of thinking, oh no, this is happening, my life is terrible, that my thoughts could be like, woohoo, this means it's almost over.
This means it's almost over.
This means we're almost at the end, and I'm not going to have to deal with this.
That was a good reminder for me that an extinction burst is not going to last forever. Right. And these are just ways of changing behavior.
Yeah. Okay. Vince, we love you.
Thank you, Vince.
You're amazing, and you're always such a wealth of knowledge. And we want to remind everybody that if there are card clients, that they can avail themselves of your services, and they can have an opportunity to speak to you, and that you also are someone who's very involved with the individual offices, that you have family support experts that you oversee at each one of the offices. Where should people go to if they have an issue that they want to talk out with you, Vince?
They can email me at any time.
Okay.
Anytime.
And so do you want to give your email out to or do we just assume that the card clients already have your email?
Never assume.
They might, right? Never assume. Right, you're right.
It's v.redmond, REDMOND, at centerforautism.com.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Vince.
Thanks so much for your advice. We appreciate you. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Nina Johnson, who is with the Minnesota Life College in Richfield, Minnesota. You have met Nina or seen her speak.
Yes.
And she's going to talk to us about independence for those on the spectrum, which is very much top of my mind, because Wyatt doesn't want any babysitters anymore. He wants to be by himself at the age of 15.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out.
Which is age appropriate.
Which is age appropriate.
It's just not mom appropriate right now.
No. Not.
I like how you curled your lip when you said no.
No.
All right, so Nina Johnson right after these messages.
Being part of this community is really important to a mom with a son like Jackson, because it really does take a village, and you need so much support, to help bring out all of the amazing qualities and skills and talents that our children have. So I'm just very grateful to everybody who was a part of this.
I think it helps with all sorts of that, self-esteem, social skills. They seem to communicate a little bit with each other, and they had a lot of friends. The helpers were phenomenal, and I think the social skills for sure, because they worked together and they did a couple group things across the floor, and they sang songs together, and yeah, for sure, I think it's a really huge deal. A great program.
What programs like this show is the person is in front of what we call today a disorder. I think what we're finding is that these sorts of brain challenges that make people unique can actually be gifts in ways we haven't discovered in the rest of society to bring them out. So when you see a program like this and you see the kids dancing, having fun, and making up jokes, making up the story. I was here when they did that. That was so amazing to watch because they were all focused, they were all present, they were all laughing, they were all getting into the creation of this story. And that to me sort of broke the barrier to say, no, first we're dealing with people and then we're dealing with the challenges.
We were distracted there because our kids were in that video.
Yes, we were very excited to watch them. They were so wonderful. But welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And Nancy and I want to welcome to the show for the first time, but not the last time, Nina Johnson, who's coming to us from the Minnesota Life College. She's been working in the field of youth development for nearly 15 years. She's been teaching, mentoring, presenting to and connecting with young people about issues that are pertinent to them. Her passion happens to be healthy sexuality and positive relationships for all people, particularly those with special needs. She is the director of enrollment and outreach for Minnesota Life College, which I can't wait for you to hear about because I got to meet Nina and talk with her a little bit when we were both at the Autism Society of America conference last year in Louisiana. So Nina, welcome. We're really excited to have you here.
Thanks, Nancy and Shannon. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Now, Nina, tell us about the Minnesota Life College in Richfield, Minnesota.
Yeah, so Minnesota Life College has been around for 20 years, and we are a really unique lifelong program for young adults with autism and learning differences. We have a 3-year undergraduate program where students after high school can really focus in on those independent living skills, social skills, and vocational skills. And then once they graduate, our students, 90% of our students graduate with paid employment, and 90% of them live independently when they are done. They go on and they're living independently, and then we have a lifelong community living program that provides social activities, additional support if needed, but all of the different facets that will allow our now independent adults to remain independent for the rest of their lives.
This is amazing. Why do we not have this in California, in Los Angeles area? It sounds
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This program's been in existence how long did you say?
20 years. We were founded by a mom in 1996.
Well, this is so many of us are we're thinking about the future for our kids. If you have a kid who's, aging up, is a teen, preteen, we've got to start thinking about these things, and you seem to be ahead of the curve in this area, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, when our program was founded, there just weren't a lot of other programs out there, and that's why this mom started the program. She wanted to find a college experience for her son that maybe wasn't going to go into a traditional academic college. And we've always felt like we've been ahead of the curve, not only because of what we did back then, but now the fact that we're lifelong, because even after high school, there's a huge drop in sort of a cliff that people fall off in terms of services. But then we also don't think about the fact that people with autism and learning differences aren't always young people. They grow up and they're in their 40s and 60s and 80s, and they still need some kinds of support, but are fully capable of living independently with the right support and resources.
So you believe relationships and human connection is a right for all people. Tell us a little bit about your view on that.
Absolutely. In my work over the past, 15 years, I was disappointed, and so many times when I would see programs that would talk about relationships and friendship and connections only through the lens of neurotypical people, as if other people maybe didn't deserve to have those connections or couldn't find them. And in all of my work and talking with individuals, every person I've ever talked to wants some kind of connection. Maybe they're not interested in a romantic relationship, but they want a friend or a peer group or a community to be a part of. And so I've always really pushed, and it's something that I feel so proud that the program that I work for stresses, is that every young person needs and deserves to have friends and a community and the opportunity to find love and relationships and a romantic connection.
Amazing. I'm so glad that you're finally getting to meet her, because I remember coming back from the conference. We met so many people at the conference, but Nina, you were one of the people that I came back and I immediately said to Nancy, you know, you got to meet this lady.
Yeah.
She's singing a song you're going to want to hear.
Is this program primarily, do you service primarily individuals from the Minnesota area, or do you have people from all around the country coming?
We actually have students and graduates from 28 states. Mm-hmm. So both coasts, we've got people from Texas to Oregon to Maine and everywhere in between. So we do definitely have a lot of people from Minnesota and Wisconsin and Illinois, but we've got people from everywhere else. And a lot of times the reason they come to us is because they can't find a program that does what we do where they live.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's hitting it right on the head. I'm wondering, Nina, though, you know, there's a lot of parents that are and caregivers that are watching the show right now and wondering, what can they do? What can they be doing to support healthy relationships and development, and the development of relationships for the people that they love that are on the autism spectrum?
Absolutely. I feel really lucky that because of my role as director of admissions, I get to spend so much time talking with parents and families, and I get to hear some of the things that they already are doing. Sometimes parents do feel really frustrated that they always have to be the orchestrator of social activities, or, you know, they say, I want my young person to call their friends, but they won't unless I do it for them. But, you know, sometimes that's what's going to work. It doesn't mean that you don't want to push them and say, hey, next time, can you push one of the buttons on the phone? Or I'll dial and you say hello. But I really appreciate all those parents that aren't giving up and just saying, I'm so tired of making plans for my child. So I appreciate all the parents that are continuing trying to find connections for their student. I think another thing is trying to access any sort of connections that they have in their area. Some people live in areas where there are lots of resources for support groups and social groups for people with autism, but other places don't have those. So maybe it's more of an interest level thing. Maybe there's a, you know, GameStop video game store where they can bring their son or daughters who could actually play video games in the store and talk to somebody. Or maybe there's a, you know, some kind of interest group that has a meeting at the library that they can go to. So I don't ever want parents to think that it's going to be easy. As you both probably know, there's a ton of work going into parenting any child, particularly somebody with autism. So parents do still need to support their students, but I also think that sometimes once a parent has made those first steps, they need to step back a little bit. And maybe how their child interacts with other people isn't exactly the way the parents would do it, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And so sometimes we'll hear parents and say, I just wish that they weren't on their phone, or I wish that they weren't playing video games. But for some students, that's how they connect. The actual social and eye contact piece is very challenging, but they can find words in a video game or texting that they can't find verbally. And so I think it's really important that sometimes those modes of communication seem frightening to us or unknown to us, but they really can help open the world for our kids.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because I do think that part of it is that we think we're supposed to be teaching our kids about socialization, you know, because it's our job as parents, but socialization has changed so much. I'm fearful because I feel like an idiot sometimes when I don't know how many times it's appropriate to text somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know. and I don't even, my son has to show me how to use my smartphone. So talk to us a little bit about how technology, you've already mentioned some things, but what role should it be taking in their lives and in their communication?
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things where technology is almost like currency to young people now. If you want to give them a privilege, giving them extra time or the Wi-Fi password for 2 hours instead of 1, or and if somebody needs hasn't been doing what you want them to do, sometimes saying, okay, no TV or no video games for today can be a really powerful message, because technology is such an important part of young people's lives. It shouldn't replace any kind of human connection, because there are things that we need to see and say and do that we only can do in person. But at the same time, technology can be really helpful. We'll see many of our students that have really learned social skills from watching how, we have students that will watch The Sims. They'll play The Sims, but really they're standing there watching them. They're watching how other people talk and interact in a way that they maybe couldn't stand in a park and just stare at people. But in the game, it's okay for them to sort of watch other people interacting and talking and see what they do. We have students who will be having really rich conversations with each other while they're sitting right next to each other on the couch texting one another. But if you ask them to put their phones away, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't talk, but they wouldn't be able to have as deep of a conversation and build as strong of a relationship. So I think for parents, one of the pieces that parents really can default to is technology is scary and it's a very dangerous place. And so either I'm not comfortable giving my young person any access to it, or the thought of, well, I don't really know this language, I'm not going to take time to learn it, I'll just leave it for my kid. And I've seen parents really be able to connect with their young person around technology, saying, show me how this works. Yeah. Show me what to do. In terms of, and maybe it's not their young person, maybe it's another young person, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a friend's child, maybe it's a niece or nephew. But, young people in general love talking about something they're really good at, and they're really good at technology. So being able to be comfortable and say, hey, I don't know this, but I want to learn is important. Yeah. In terms of, I
was just going to say, I always think of the story of the dad who was on the show and said to me, he said, the turning point for me was that I would spend so much of my day saying to my kid, get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone. And then the day that I said, what is it that you're playing on that phone that is so exciting to you? And the kid said, Clash of Clans. And so the dad said, I don't know how to do that. Show me how to do it. And now he plays Clash of Clan with his son, and they go and raid other people's clans. And he said it has now become one of the strongest points in their relationship.
Wow, that's great, because now it's teaching that child socialization skills.
And he has that in common, and they don't have that thing where they're butting heads. Right. So I appreciate you saying that, Nina. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it just, I always think about that.
Nina, I'm curious how you got into this line of work. Did you have a personal connection with someone on the spectrum?
Actually, it is all thanks to my husband. He is actually a special education teacher. And so when he was going through his master's program, I was doing sexual health education at the time, and he actually came as a field trip to Minnesota Life College, and I came along with. And when I was here, I said, when we left, I said, I wonder if students with disabilities are getting any kind of sex education. So I started calling schools at the time and saying, do you have anybody that does this? And they said, oh my goodness, somebody who could talk about relationships, somebody who could talk about, dating with our students, please come and do that. And then I also got to start coming and doing that at Minnesota Life College with our students who have graduated. We've got graduates now who are married. We have a variety of couples. And these are some people that needed some support and resources. And then that sort of over time turned into my career here, getting to tell all the people about the amazing things we do at MLC. So my career in sex ed was before MLC, but MLC brought me to people with special needs, and people with special needs brought me back to MLC. So it's kind of a great
And
story.
we should say that, people, you also, you're an amazing speaker, and you do presentations, and you are available for consultations, that kind of thing. But and that's separate. But let's make sure that we give people, how can they find out more about Minnesota Life College?
Yeah, well, it's really easy to find. We're online at minnesotalifecollege.org or .com, either one. We also have a great Facebook page, and I'm just giving it a shout out because I'm our moderator for it.
Okay.
So I highly suggest you check out our Facebook page at Minnesota Life College. It's a great way to learn about all that we do. We also travel around most of the year presenting and visiting people in different states. We have families who are wonderful ambassadors for us in all of the states that we have students that come from. So we have families that are willing to meet with people in other states or talk to them on the phone and talk about their experience. One of the biggest things we feel like we can give families is hope, and the idea that there are places that your son or daughter can go and learn how to live independently and have a really amazing, independent, but connected future. One of our graduates said it to me, and I just love it. He said, the thing I love about MLC is because I'm here, I'm independent, but I'm never alone. And this is a graduate who, when he started, basically went through his entire school career not ever getting invited to a single activity or a single birthday party. Now he's, one of the most beloved members of our community. He regularly does public speaking. He's in a wonderful relationship. Basically he's got real friends, and that's the thing he talks about all the time. It's just, this was a place where I didn't have to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I don't have to pretend that I get everything that everybody else is doing. I'm fully embraced for being me.
It sounds remarkable, and I wish we could clone you and the program.
and maybe we can clone the program.
Okay, so I think we're out of time.
We are out of time, unfortunately, but you will come back another time and talk more with us?
Oh, I would love to. I would
Fabulous.
absolutely love to. Be my honor.
Yeah, we'd like to talk about that sexuality piece.
Yes.
Perfect. I'll be back next time to talk about
Okay.
that.
All right,
great.
fabulous.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and do In the News.
Couple of In the News, yeah.
Stick with us.
Thank you, Nina. Bye-bye.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
We're talking about our kids in college and our fears of empty nests, which I never thought would be coming quite so fast. I mean, Wyatt's only 15.
It goes so fast.
And
But
Jem is
it's a
how old
blink.
now?
13.
13.
But my joke that I always would say to my parents said that I was a Dr. Spock baby. So I'm the middle of 3 children. And by the time I was born, my parents were living in Puerto Rico, and because my dad was in the Air Force, and my mother had a Dr. Spock book that she was reading.
I remember my mother reading Dr. Spock.
And it said, tell positive assumptive things to your children. Say, when you go to college.
Right.
So from the time that I was born, my mother would always say to me, now when you go to college.
Right.
She didn't say that to my sister who was older. She didn't say that to my brother who was younger. And I was the kid who, there was no doubt in my mind because my head was filled with when you go to college. It didn't even occur to me that I could opt out.
Right.
I didn't even know that was an option.
I was sort of like that about work because my father loved his job. And I just assumed I would always have a career.
Right. Well, but so the thing that I've always said to Jem is when you go to college and mommy gets an apartment around the corner.
Right.
That's what I've always said. Now we're just recently tweaking that because, but anyway.
All right, so we're going to go to some in the news stories.
Yeah, a couple of.
Yes, this one is ScienceDaily.com. Children exposed to complications at birth at risk of autism in a new study.
I think I always find what's interesting is how everybody else reacts to these studies. And I've seen a lot of people reacting to this and saying, see, not genetic. Which is not what it says.
No.
But if you do have complications at birth, you are more likely to have it. But we've known that for a while. We've known that preemies were more likely at higher risk for autism.
Right. And so now they're saying complications before or during birth, including birth asphyxia and preeclampsia, were more likely to develop autism. And this was a Kaiser Permanente study that was published in the American Journal of Perinatology.
And I think the takeaway should be that if you've had a child that has had any kind of complication at or around birth, to be more vigilant, and that your pediatrician should be more vigilant, because we know that early diagnosis leads to faster getting services and better outcomes.
Right. And this is part of a study, Kaiser Permanente's broader efforts to deliver transformational health research regarding autism spectrum. In 2016 of August, they did a study that found that the risk of younger siblings developing ASD is 14 times higher if an older sibling has ASD. And in 2015, a Kaiser Permanente study found that children whose mothers developed gestational diabetes by the 26th week of pregnancy were at risk of developing autism later in life.
Well, and we were in Kaiser, and I had gestational diabetes.
Right.
But I will say this, I don't know how conclusive that is, because I know from being a Kaiser mother that even if you are borderline, and I was borderline gestational diabetes, they forced us, and I do mean forced us, to take insulin shots. So it could, do we know that it's the gestational diabetes, or do we know it's the insulin? Right? I would want a further study on that. Just me, and I was one of those moms. The other study that we have comes to us from Medical News Today, and you can always, we love to reference work, so you can go and read the whole article for yourself, talking about, here's a drug that's been around for a while, and there is the potential now from a mouse model that a tuberculosis drug may help with some symptoms having to do with autism.
And it's an antibiotic, to be specific.
Thank you. And what they've seen in the mouse model is that it's helped in particular with socialization. Again, just a mouse model, but an interesting thing. I think, one of the things that we're going to see more and more of is looking at the anxiety that comes with the reason why people don't enjoy socialization. And that we're going to see a wider array of drugs being tried out. But it always concerns me when we have these mouse models and we get all excited because it's a mouse model.
Right, because you don't know how long it is from being a mouse model to when it can be used in humans.
Well, and what they're doing is taking mice and they're inducing symptoms in them that are like autism, and then they give them the drug, and then they go, oh, it fixed what we did to them, but that's not what happened to our children. So I have concerns about that.
Right.
But in any case, you can read about this tuberculosis drug at Medical News Today. It goes into very specifics about what it does to the brain chemistry that actually creates a better sense.
The amygdala of the brain.
Yes.
That's the amygdala is the brain region that has been linked to social and behavioral impairments in people with autism. And there's a lot of research going on how the amygdala, the neuron activity in the amygdala, influences social behavior. And this is one of those studies.
There you go. So look for that, medicalnewstoday.com. The title of the article is Could a Tuberculosis Drug Help Treat Autism? Okay, so those are our news stories for today. I want to, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that I mention, because tomorrow we've got a big show. You know how last week we talked about the fecal transplants?
Yes.
So tomorrow on the show, we have the 3 leading scientists from that study
exciting.
from ASU. It's really exciting.
Where are they from?
From ASU, Arizona State University.
Okay.
All 3 of them are going to Skype in together.
Okay.
We were introduced. We want to say we have a great viewer who introduced us to one of the leads on the study, and he agreed to Skype. It's going to be the last 15 minutes of the show, so you're not going to want to miss that. And he said, all 3 of us want to do it. Can we? And I was like, hello, we're thrilled to have you on the show.
Do we know when this technique might be available? This this procedure treatment.
Widely, and I think it is available widely, and we're going to talk specifically. If you guys have specific questions, you can write in, but I know I want to ask about, can people do this now? What are the risk factors? I want to know, because there is a way that they sanitize the fecal,
right?
And I want to know what that is, because there is that mental thing that goes on in your head about how the delivery is, because we've heard some different stories. So we're going to ask all those questions. We got a short period of time with them, but thrilled that they're going to be on the show. We also, last week, we were going to have Pastor, and help me, Samantha, I just totally his name, Hardwick, but I can't think what his first name is. Lamar Hardwick. Pastor Lamar Hardwick is going to be on the show. He was going to be on last week, and we had some technical difficulties. We've sorted that out, and he's the gentleman. He's a pastor who had some difficulties in his life, and he couldn't figure out, married, multiple children, but couldn't figure out why things weren't always working.
Right.
And finally, a member of his parish spoke up to him in a note and said, you're not all that great with people, and you're not. And he
had never been diagnosed with.
He had
being
never
on the
been
spectrum.
diagnosed as being on the spectrum.
So was he diagnosed with autism?
He was diagnosed.
Or Asperger's.
He was diagnosed at the time as Asperger's, but we know that designation doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
But so he's on the spectrum, and he's changed some things in his life and gotten some help and support. And what I love is that he said, when they explained it to me, he said, I got to meet myself for the first time.
Interesting.
And he's been able to bring that to his parish.
Uh-huh.
And
so does he have a special needs ministry, or does he just utilize this knowledge in dealing with people in the...
all of the above.
Okay.
And now he's written a book.
Okay.
About how faith and being diagnosed and being a family man and how faith plays a role in what he's been able to do. So we're going to talk with him tomorrow. And
I'm really interested in that. I'm going to have to tune in.
And he's amazing. He writes a lot for The Mighty. You've probably read some of his articles. He's a really inspirational writer and a dad, and really incredible. And then also we have Bonnie Yates, special education attorney Bonnie Yates. We're going to discuss a couple of the questions that we have had from earlier this morning.
Yeah, you had Dr. Doreen this morning, and there were a few questions. What were some
about
of those
restraints,
questions?
About is it
utilizing restraints in the school?
When a school uses restraints without a parent's permission.
So you had a parent that actually had a school use restraints, and the parent didn't know about it?
Yes,
so
and didn't approve it. So we'll be talking about that with Bonnie
is something that Doreen said should be referred to a legal
Absolutely.
expert. Okay.
And then we still have the leftover question from last week that we didn't get to, which is talking about placement and about whether you want to be on the graduation track or whether you don't want to be on the graduation track.
I'm really interested in that because Wyatt is in 9th grade, and I'm already thinking about, there's 2 different schools of thought. I mean, we know many people in our community that say vocational.
Yep.
Plus you get to have your child attend school longer.
Yep.
Or do they get a diploma? I've also, there are people that say without a diploma, your child is destined to a life of poverty.
Right. So we're going to talk with Bonnie about what the legal realities and your rights are for that. And then we did have another question this morning from a parent of a 13-year-old who had gotten into a tussle with somebody at school and now is being expected to appear in juvenile court. And so we're going to reference that really quickly with Bonnie tomorrow too, because these are serious issues that come
very
up.
serious issues.
So all of that happening tomorrow. So it's going to be a great, great show. And we're thrilled about that. We just have a minute left. So I just want to say thank you to you for being here and being so amazing. You've got a run coming up.
Thank you. Yes, we have a run, the Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival on April 15th in San Diego. Yes. You can go to Act Today for Military Families, Quintera, I believe, which is the runsite.org.
And we're looking for virtual runners around the country.
We're looking for people to support that effort. So not just people that can make it to San Diego, but people that can support it and maybe do virtual runs that day and raise money for military families challenged by autism because of the unique set of challenges. Are they more deserving than anybody else? No, for treatment and care, but there's some challenges that are unique to the military family, frequent deployments, frequent change in where they live, and we have a lot of military families awaiting grants. So.
And in these volatile times where it seems like everybody's butting heads, you know, one of the best things that you can do is to do something for somebody else.
That's right.
And this is a great opportunity to do something for somebody else. It's a really meaningful
rather than
thing
complain about the current state of affairs.
Which I love to do. But it's better to do something for somebody else.
It's definitely better to take action.
That's and what better way to do that.
Right.
And
I
believe
going
in
and venting
karma,
on Facebook,
comes
you
back
can do that
two
too,
times
but
two.
you know, it seems like there's so much venting these days.
Right, we can always schedule that, right?
Right, okay.
We're out of time, but don't miss tomorrow's show because it's going to be really exciting. And until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.